Hey, this is Robert Scoble. I'm live here from Half Moon Bay, California, and we're going to be having a discussion about virtual and augmented reality, and the conversation will start shortly. Um, for people who don't know who I am, I'm a tech journalist and futurist. I go around the world and interview tech startups. Siri was launched in this bedroom, actually. I was the first one to see Siri and many other things in my studio here in my son's bedroom. And I've just come off of a world tour where I've seen, I don't know, visited 15 countries in the last 3 months. And just tonight, I hosted a VR event in San Francisco. And so I've seen a lot of the latest technologies, both that have come out and that will come out over the next few years. Uh, let's start talking about 5 years from now. 5 years from now, you're going to be wearing a glass on your face, something like a Magic Leap. Actually, let me see if I can get one of these things for you. Yes, I have a few examples here. This is a early version of an augmented reality glass. This is the Meta 1 augmented reality glass, where you look through it and you can see virtual items. Now, this is very, very big and heavy and very low resolution compared to the glasses that are going to come out over the next few years. You might have heard of companies like Magic Leap, for instance, and that got $1.3 billion of investment so far, and it's quite a wild new field. So I see that my videos are being broadcast around the world, and the GITEX team is preparing a series of questions for me, and so we'll start answering those questions as soon as they show up. So let's talk about virtual reality first of all, because at the GITEX show in later this year, I think that's going to be a hot topic that a lot of people around the world are going to be interested in. For people who don't know what GITEX is, it's a huge trade show in Dubai. It's the Middle East's largest consumer electronics show, and it happens every year, and it's quite impressive. Let's set up the context for virtual reality. This fall, there are going to be 3 high-end headsets that are going to compete. There's going to be the HTC Vive. There's the Oculus Rift, which is owned by Facebook. And then there's the Sony PlayStation VR. And let's just cover each one. I think Sony is going to have the most market share because it's fairly affordable. It costs, $400 to buy a PlayStation, and then about $400 to buy the headset with controllers. And it's pretty good. Now, if you jump up to Oculus or Vive, those are going to display more polygons to your eyes because they use a high-end gaming PC with an NVIDIA high-end GPU or an AMD high-end GPU. And those are going to offer more ability to move around the room because they're going to have sensors that sit up on your wall that make a virtual space. So you can walk around like this or turn your head in the headset. And the controllers can work in 3 dimensions, which are really cool. So Major Stedman says, how do I feel about the AR success of Pokemon Go? Well, first of all, if we're going to be technical about it, Pokemon Go is not really AR. It's sort of a stepping stone to AR. When you say AR to me, I'm thinking of wearing a glass and it puts a virtual item on top of the real world. Now, yes, you have a Pokemon on top of the real world, but it's not locked to that world. When you play with something like HoloLens or Magic Leap or Meta, or like this Meta 1, and you're looking through it, you're actually seeing the virtual item on top of the real world, and it's stuck in a position. And so Pokemon moves around as you try to shoot it, and it's not true augmented reality. But forget about that for a second. It gives you a taste of what's coming, where you're going to put virtual items on top of the real world. And many companies are already working on augmented reality. Sephora, a cosmetic retailer here in the United States, already lets you aim your phone at signs and it puts virtual items on top of the signs. That's augmented reality. So anyways, we were talking about high-end VR headsets. You know, the Vive has these two controllers that you have to put on your wall, and that creates a virtual space that you can walk around inside, and you can throw football, you can play frisbee or tennis with people, you can shoot people, you can walk around a virtual world and explore it, you can be attacked by zombies, you can watch all sorts of different kinds of 360-degree movies or journalism, and on and on. So it's quite a fun year to be watching this new industry evolve. So Jitex just asked me, which do I think will have more success, augmented reality or virtual reality? I am very, very bullish on augmented reality, or what I call mixed reality. Microsoft HoloLens, Meta, or Magic Leap, and there's 9 or 10 different glasses that I know of under development. But AR is not going to happen for 3 to 5 years for most people, because the glasses are too big right now. The HoloLens is big, and so you're not going to wear that in the street. You're not going to really understand. You're not going to be able to afford it either. So if you're talking about in the next 2 years, VR is going to have more success. If you're talking about 5 years, I think AR. But keep in mind, AR, when you're wearing a Magic Leap glass, these have 2 new chips that are under development that take light out of the air as it comes toward your eyes and put new light into your eyes. So it can take a wall and make that wall disappear, and then it can put something new on top of that wall, right? And that's quite mind-blowing. If it can take light out of the air like that, it can also do virtual reality. So the AR glasses that are going to come out over the next 5 years are going to do VR and AR. And so what's the difference? But this year, it's VR. VR is the one you're going to buy this Christmas. VR is what you're going to hear a lot about. VR is what you're going to be able to experience by going into a store. And AR is for the future. So Ademi asks, which do you think have more prospects in advertising, AR or VR? I believe AR does, because it's putting virtual items on top of the real world. So imagine you're walking down a shopping aisle with glasses on that do this mixed reality stuff. It's going to point to things. It's going to augment brands and do things with brands. And you're going to see a whole new kind of advertising come along for AR. Virtual reality is more akin to gaming, right? And there is advertising in gaming, and there certainly is ability to buy new things in games, new swords, new weapons, stuff like that. But it doesn't have a map to the real world the way that the mixed reality glasses are going to have. And so I think mixed reality or AR is going to be much more interesting for advertisers long term. Hina asks, what do I think are the key traits of a successful tech entrepreneur? I think, actually I have a poster on my wall. Yeah, I should pull it off and bring it over here. It says, I'm not delusional, I'm an entrepreneur. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. If you're going to build a successful company, you have to see in your mind a new world that you're going to build, or a new brand, or a new idea. And many of your friends and family are just not going to get it. And even if they say they get it, they're not going to have the same passion for this idea that you do. And so you've got to be steadfast and crazy even to try to build a company. And that's what I look for. I look for somebody who is building something that none of us expects. How many people expect Doppler Labs to do augmented reality audio buds? And I should have brought those out too. But I have these little audio buds that block the sound from getting to your ear, have microphones on them, and have processing in them and a speaker. And they cost about $200, and they make music sound better, and they have really advanced noise canceling features, and then they have processing features, so you can be at a concert and all of a sudden you can switch it to be in a cathedral or in a stadium or a small room, and it's really mind-blowing when you listen to these augmented reality audio headphones from Doppler Labs. It's called the Hear Active Listening System. You might see those at GITEX this fall. So what are the key traits of a successful tech entrepreneur? You got to be able to convince people you're not crazy. You got to be able to sell your idea and get people to buy in on it. You've got to be able to hire people or get people to join your company and help you build your company. The best ones are really good at that, right? And you've got to be able to figure out how to build everything and get a customer and get people to pay for this, right? So, or if you're not going to do customers, like Instagram didn't really have customers, they didn't pay for it. You have to understand how this could be monetized and how you could build a company using venture capital into a thing that's going to be bought. And that's a lot of skills there, right? So it's storytelling, it's ability to hire and fire, it's ability to sell and get capital for your company, all sorts of interesting things. So, Enterprise Channels MEA magazine asks, VR or augmented reality have been disrupting the retail sector for long, but how far has the penetration been in mainstream enterprises? Not far at all. We are at the beginning of this new industry. Virtual reality headsets have literally just started shipping in the past month. And many people who have bought an Oculus Rift or an HTC Vive either just got their product or still are waiting for it. And if you bought one today, you might not get it for a couple months, right? And keep in mind, even if you bought an Oculus Rift, you don't yet have the controllers. I don't have the controllers. Facebook hasn't shipped them yet. So those are coming later this year. And so we are at the very beginning of a consumer product category, right? Virtual reality. We don't yet, if you have an iPhone, you don't yet have a mobile headset from Apple, right? Samsung has one for its phones, but we don't yet have one for an iPhone. And Google has announced a whole raft of things, from Google Tango sensors, which will let us to do this kind of move around, to a new Daydream framework, so that many manufacturers can build phones and headsets that'll be Daydream compatible, and on, right? So we haven't even started seeing consumer adoption. It's very few people have VR so far compared to who will have it in a couple of years. And I think the mobile VR is probably going to be the one that's going to bring it to mainstream. And we're about 18 months before mobile solves all the problems that mobile has in the virtual reality space. The GPUs on phones are underpowered, the screens aren't sharp enough, the sensors aren't there, the controllers aren't there. So we're going to be waiting for a year to two before we see the mainstream market really show up. So Stuart Gallup asks, how big an impact do I think a successful PSVR launch could have on the VR industry as a whole? A sizable one. We're looking to see, let's take it to the movie industry. The movie industry is mostly holding back right now because there's not enough headsets out there. Samsung Gear VR is rumored to have sold about 1 million headsets, and HTC Vive is rumored to be sold about 100,000 headsets, and Oculus Rift is sold 100 and something thousand. And Google Cardboard has given away millions, but you don't want to watch a movie in Google Cardboard. That's good for watching something that's 10 or 15 minutes long, not something that's 2 or 3 hours long, right? So the movie industry is waiting for our consumer electronics industry to ship millions of headsets, not just hundreds of thousands, right? So the answer is a successful PSVR launch could have a big impact. Now, that being said, Pokemon has lit up everybody, and we know that new things are coming and new customers are coming, and that has opened up the door for new investments. So, yeah. Maze asked, what's my impression of the Middle East technology scene? Well, it's if you've been to a GITEX show, you know it's quite healthy, right? It's not a really strong hub of technology innovation. You don't see a lot of technology coming out of the Middle East unless you count Israel. If you count Israel, then you see a ton of innovation coming out of the Middle East. But you see a huge market, and Dubai is a touch point to Africa and other places in the world. So it's a real important show to go to, and you see that the booths are quite large, and it's a huge floor and a lot of people going to it. So it's something that the consumer electronics industry has to take very seriously. And Stuart says, thanks for your thoughts. It's going to be an exciting where the next 12 to 18 is that years or months? Because the next 12 to 18 months is going to be pretty crazy, and the next 12 to 18 years is going to be I had dinner with some people tonight who are innovators, and we're like, we have no idea what's going to happen in 12 to 18 years, but certainly we're going to have self-driving cars, we're going to have these mixed reality glasses, we're going to have really advanced artificial intelligence that's going to do a lot of different things. So it's crazy. And Anushri says, when we say virtual, it has a lot of elements in the backdrop supporting it, right from your cloud architecture to your mobile infrastructure to your organizational infrastructure. What are the 3 things that a CIO has to bear in mind if he is venturing into a virtual reality project? Well, that depends. Because VR is being used today at Ford to build new cars, right? So the CIO of Ford has to think about intellectual property. How is he going to keep hackers from getting into the systems and stealing the designs for the new Ford and putting them up on the web or selling them to competitors or whatnot? So the intellectual property is really protection is a real key thing. You have to think about how are you going to display polygons to your eyes, right? Are you going to buy new NVIDIA cards for all your employees who are going to have to work in this new world? And the answer is yes, you will, right? I had to buy a new PC. I have all Macs in front of me, and I would rather just stay with Macs, but I had to buy a PC with an NVIDIA 1080 card in it to run the Oculus Rift or the HTC Vive. So that's a concern. If you're going to build content for this new world, you have to figure out how you're going to hire or train people in Unity and other tools to build these virtual worlds, right? Unity is the standard one that most people are using, but maybe you don't have employees who understand how to do these virtual worlds in Unity. So you're going to have to either train people or hire people to do that. So that's one concern. So security, new workloads, new equipment, and hiring and training people to build these virtual worlds. And I'll think of a few more in a little bit. Cloud infrastructure is really key because let's talk about these Magic Leap glasses, right? Magic Leap is building optical chips that are going to take light out of the world and put new light into your eyes. They're going to put virtual images on top of the world. So you're going to see a Donald Duck on my table or something crazy, right? If you play with HoloLens, I visited a startup in Seattle, and they work in a white office, and on the wall when you put the HoloLens on is a window, a fake window, right? A virtual window, and you can look around that window and it looks real, and then you click on the window with your finger, click, and zombies start crawling out of the window. It's really crazy, right? And that's just a little taste of what you can do with HoloLens. So, but to display those polygons, they have a GPU in the HoloLens. It's made by Intel, and it's not all that powerful yet. So if you do something really complex, it gets really hot and the battery dies, and maybe it shuts off. My Samsung Gear VR, when I'm playing VR, dies after about 40 minutes because the phone gets too hot when you're playing in mobile VR, because the GPU is very underpowered in the mobile devices, and it just heats up and the thing shuts off. So we need better GPUs to display polygons. But then I'm going to soon use, on Magic Leap, there's eye sensors, and I played with this already. You look at something, it takes a picture of it and pops a menu off of it and lets you buy that product just by looking at it. So to do that new kind of machine learning, the vision system, you have to have a separate GPU that's doing that artificial intelligence. And that GPU might be up in the cloud, but that means you have to pass a lot of packets up to the cloud, do the processing in the cloud, and then pass the answer back to the device. That's a lot of GPUs somewhere. Somewhere there's a lot of GPUs is my answer. So we're going to see CIOs really care about new architectures and new clouds and new techniques to do this stuff. So let me look at some of these questions coming in. What's the most amazing VR experience I've had? Oh man, there's a bunch of them that are all really pretty cool. I was just at Ghostbusters in New York City and saw The Void. They have a Ghostbusters VR experience at the Wax Museum in Times Square. And they built a specialized headset, a specialized haptic suit that you wear, and a specialized gun. And then they built a bunch of things in a physical space. So when you're walking around, bridges shake, and when you blow up the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, you smell marshmallows. It's a lot of fun. But that's probably the most amazing experience I've had. But heck, with my HTC Vive, you can play Frisbee with other people in Rec Room. You can shoot zombies in the Brookhaven experiment. It's an amazing experience, and it's very scary, right? So all of these things are a lot of fun to play with and really pretty mind-blowing. So Stuart Gallup is asking, do I see a future for VR, AR arcade spaces? Absolutely. The Void is a VR, AR arcade space, and there was a long line to get into the thing. And then he goes on and says that can also educate people, potential creators, on the skills needed to be successful in this new industry. That's a tougher one, because if you're just playing an arcade game for 10 or 15 minutes and paying $20 or $70 like I did for The Void, you're just not going to get immersed enough into this world to really understand how to build things. You're going to need your own VR headset. And that costs $2,000 today. You can certainly take classes in Upload or Unity. Unity is free. Upload is the place I work. It's a co-working space in San Francisco, and we're soon going to open up one in Los Angeles. There's 30 companies in my office, basically, who are hanging out there building companies. And there's education every night and longer term education that we're doing with Make School to teach you how to do Unity. So let's see. Stuart also says he's very keen to see more of Magic Leap and Meta. Absolutely. Every time I see Meta, it gets better. And same thing with HoloLens, same thing with Magic Leap. This is a very interesting new industry that most consumers have not yet even considered, right? Mays asks, what's one piece of advice that you would give to a startup or entrepreneur just starting out in the tech industry? Um, hmm, that's an interesting one. Hire well. But um, man, that's, have a consistent, clean story. That really takes you far away. If you can't explain your company in a sentence or two, you just haven't thought it through well enough. Most people are not going to give you very much time to explain your company, so you have to get to the point really fast, right? Bilal asks, "Hi Robert, what type of innovation do I foresee in the near future from start on VR?" I'm not sure what you're getting at there, so I'll have to come back to that. In CES and MWC, there was a lot of noise in 2016 being the year VR finally goes mainstream. Has it gone mainstream? No, we have not sold any headsets yet. I mean, and it depends how you define mainstream. Do a lot of nerds in San Francisco have it? No, we're still in the process of buying our first headsets. Even the early adopters. This is the year that you're finally getting an idea of when it's going mainstream, and I think VR won't go mainstream until the mobile phones solve four problems: screen resolution, GPU speed, because they're way too hot when you start playing a lot of VR. Controllers for your hands. You need a gun and a sword and a football and something in your hands, like the Vive has, right? And the fourth one is room scale VR, the ability to move in 6 degrees of freedom. Today we can only turn our head in Samsung's Gear VR like this. We can't do this, and the solutions to all these are coming quickly, but quickly being 18 months. So in the 18 months, you're going to see the mobile phone come along, and that's when I think it's going to really start going mainstream because people can afford it. Most people around the world don't have $2,000 sitting around to buy a dorky looking thing for their head, right? So, yeah. What are the top 5 most exciting startup VR companies for 2016? Oh man, that's a tough one to put me on the spot for right now. Um, I'm gonna separate it into groups of things, right? You're gonna have social VR. Social VR means you're playing with other people in VR. Things like Philip Rosedale's High Fidelity, or Oculus has an app called Toybox that's being developed, or AltSpace VR is one of these companies. Unreal VR is one of these social VR companies. So that's 4 right there, 4 social VR companies. The adult space is going to be very hot, but I'm going to leave that alone because this is a family show. But then there's at least 6 companies that are doing adult content for VR, and that's going to be a hot area. You're going to have journalism, right? And Emblematic is doing journalism. Noni, who was one of the people who was in the room when Oculus Rift was developed, is now building a company that's going to try to build new kinds of journalistic experiences for virtual reality. The New York Times has already distributed some of that kind of work with the Google Cardboard style thing that they distributed to their subscribers, and you're going to see a lot more of that. So we have social, we have adult, we have journalism. Education is going to see several startups. I've seen a few that are trying to replace textbooks or trying to teach people different subjects like chemistry in Google Cardboard so you can visualize new things like biology or chemistry, right? So education is going to be a big one. I don't yet have a company that comes straight to mind in that space, but there will be several, and a few are hanging out at my office, so I'll have more to say in the future. Gaming is going to be mega big this year, and you're seeing all sorts of different games, from Brookhaven Experiment to Budget Cuts to Selfie Tennis to what else? The Lab, Rec Room. I mean, on and on. There on my Vive already. There's 80 different games and more that come every day. So gaming is going to be a big one, and you're going to see a raft of startups in the gaming world that are focused just on VR. And then what else are we going to see in VR? Medical. There's a lot of apps that are coming out that will do various things with your mind. They've already found that it's better at solving pain problems than drugs are, right? So you're gonna if you're going to be in the hospital for a while, they're going to give you a VR headset and they're going to have you do things to get your mind off your pain. I visited a doctor down in South Africa that works with professional athletes, and she's doing an app to exercise their eyes, and they are seeing remarkable results. So we're just at the front of the medical thing, right? And on and on. There's going to be a lot of fun stuff. Rahul just asked, what can I expect from your session at GITEX? I'm going to show you what the latest stuff is in the world. I always keep my speech up to date, and I'm certainly going to talk about Magic Leap style stuff, mixed reality stuff, as well as the latest in virtual reality and the kinds of things that you can do with it. Bilal asks, are the big incubators and accelerators investing even more on VR tech? Some of them are. There's certainly a lot of investment in VR. You're seeing it at Upload. You're seeing it in Israel. I visited a company called Inception, although that's not necessarily an incubator, but it gives you a sense of how global this thing is. There's companies that I visited all over the world. There's a big incubator in France, and the people who are running it tell me that they're going to invest a lot in VR and AR. Certainly you're seeing Google and Baidu invest a lot of money in Magic Leap, right? Magic Leap has had $1.3 billion of investment so far. Oculus Rift got bought for $3 billion from Facebook, and the rumors are that Mark Zuckerberg has already planned on spending $10 billion over the next decade, if not more, right? And on and on. But it's a little early. You know, this is early work. There's a few investment funds. Rothenberg Ventures was the first one that started investing in this space. Boost VC is another one that's investing a lot in the VR space. But literally every investor has said they are, you know, trying to find companies to invest in this space. So watch what happens over the next year. Mays says, it has been said that startups in the Middle East have yet to produce a truly innovative idea, with many simply imitating successes in other markets. See Kareem and Uber. What lesson would I give to the region startups about increasing their innovation and the region's visibility as a tech leader? That's a hard one. And it's not just the Middle East. I get asked that question literally in every country I visit. You know, how can we build a Silicon Valley here? You know, that's the kind of question it is. And to build a Silicon Valley, or to build a successful innovation hub, because you're never going to really compete with Silicon Valley unless you're China, you need to keep the nerds in your society from leaving. So if you have a computer science graduate who's just getting out of college, where do they decide to live? Do they decide to live in your community, or are they going to move to Silicon Valley to start a tech company? And unfortunately, for most of you around the world, the answer is almost always they leave and go to Silicon Valley, which raises my housing price, and I'd rather them figure out, you know, how to stay home. But they leave for a bunch of different reasons, and it's not just the Middle East. In Illinois, they actually are working on this problem because at University of Illinois, they invented Mozilla. Tesla started there, PayPal started there, Hotmail started there, a few other things started there. And the kids who get out of college start a company and then go, oh, this isn't a cool place to start a company, so let's move to San Francisco and start the company, right? So they're working on a few angles. One, they're putting in really high-speed networking. so that the nerds who are building companies can have the infrastructure to, one, stay at home and have really great experience with the internet, and two, build companies and build data centers and build things in their local community. Two, you gotta have something to do in the evening, because if you're an entrepreneur, you work, and particularly if you're a young entrepreneur, a 20-year-old or a 22-year-old, and you're working all night on code, and then you get out and you're like, I need something to eat, and I want to go and have some fun now. I want to blow off some steam. Well, are there any nightclubs in your area? Are there restaurants? Are there fun things to do? Good movie theaters? Is there a place to see music? And on, right? And Illinois has been working hard on that. I met the mayor there, and they've invested millions of dollars in their downtown area to make a district like this, to make sure that entrepreneurs don't leave the community. And you also have to have risk-taking capital. So you have to have rich people who are willing to spend money in weird and new ideas, right? That's hard. That's really hard for a lot of rich people to do. Silicon Valley does it all the time. I mean, look, AltSpace VR got $16 million. They don't have a product. They don't have, nobody has headsets, so there's no market yet. And it's a new idea. Nobody's ever thought of building a business before in virtual reality. Yet they got funding for it. But they got funding for it from a Silicon Valley startup VC company, and a few of them, right? So you have to build a culture that understands how to take risks on new things and build new things and invest in new things, and that's really tough. So we could keep going on that, but it's pretty boring. You need to have a government really who comes in and says, "Hey, we're going to build an ecosystem in this area, and we're going to provide capital that's risk capital. We're going to provide high-speed bandwidth. We're going to provide schooling so that people go to school and learn computer science and technology and Unity and how to build things for these new things coming up, right?" So Bilal asks, where do I see the uptake of VR across industries in Middle East and Africa? In Africa, they threw me a virtual reality party in Cape Town. So it's no different than San Francisco. You're going to see the exact same businesses. Now, keep in mind, most people in Africa are far poorer than, let's say, somebody living in San Francisco. So coming up with $2,000 to buy an HTC Vive today is a tough thing for most people in that society. So they're going to be just 5 years behind. And they're going to wait until the mobile phones get really good VR, and they're going to be able to do it for nothing, right? It's coming, though. So this is why you sort of have to watch San Francisco or Beijing, China, or Tel Aviv, Israel, to see where the bleeding edge is, and then figure out how long it'll take before it's affordable for each kind of community around the world, right? If you're talking to somebody who's living in a shack with a dirt floor, it's going to be a while. Although Google Cardboard works with a low-end Android phone, right? So you're going to see a lot of stuff happen real fast around the world. It's not going to be all that predictable for a lot of people. Stuart says, a startup founder from the UK, which has a strong reputation for innovation and strong creative industries, do I think the insane Brexit vote will hurt our ability to raise investment or attract talent? Yes. And same thing if we elect Trump here in the United States. It's going to have a bad effect. Rintu says, hi, Robert, do you think Magic Leap will live up to the hype? Yes, it lives up to the hype. There's a reason that they got $1.3 billion of investment without having a product. It is a magical product. Rabia says, and by the way, if Magic Leap fails, there's 11 or at least 9 headsets under development that do exactly the same thing. From Microsoft HoloLens to Meta, Apple has a headset under development. WeChat has a headset under development. Snapchat has a headset under development. I just talked to somebody at Pinterest. They're looking at it. I know the guy who runs Twitter's VR and AR efforts. They're looking at it. So you're going to see a lot of headsets, even if Magic Leap doesn't quite get out to the market in time or something like that, right? Rabia says, and by the way, Pinterest, Pokemon Go has really ramped up the investment community here in Silicon Valley. We all know the market is primed now and the pressure is on and on big. And whoever wins this space is going to end up with a market of hundreds of billions of dollars. So there is a lot of people who are working 24 hours a day right now in this industry, and they get these glasses out and show you how magical they are. And anybody who's been inside a HoloLens or a Magic Leap knows how magical these things are. Rabia says, in your opinion, what are the hottest tech brands we should be watching out for? For example, what do you think the future plans are for early VR leaders like Google, Facebook, Sony? Who do I think will win the VR tech race? Ooh, that's a big question. All right, so at the high end, I told you there's Sony VR, Sony PlayStation VR, Oculus Rift, and HTC Vive. Most people think the early winner is going to be Sony because the price is lower, the installed base is bigger, and they have a deep content library that they can bring game after game and thing to play in PlayStation VR. That'll be the early winner. I think the long-term winner could possibly be Facebook, because Facebook has 1.7 billion people playing on Facebook, and they're going to be able to bring those people into VR and show the people who don't yet have a VR headset how magical it is, and they're going to advertise it and demonstrate it to 1.7 billion people, and that's going to create a brand that everybody's going to want to be in. Plus, they're really advanced on social VR, on VR that you play with your friends, and that's going to be a huge area, and it's going to be a huge thing that's going to drive you to get a VR headset, because the second you see me and my sons playing in social VR, football or frisbee or tennis or golf or shooting or a variety of other things, you're going to want one, and you're going to want one bad, and that'll be a major driver for Facebook. Apple's a big wild card, and I think Apple's going to wait until the mobile phone's ready. So let's say Apple comes into the market in 24 months, but they're going to come in with a phone that's not going to have any of the problems of the current generation. It's going to have a sharp screen. It's going to have a really great GPU. It's going to have a lot of content, because Apple can afford to pay a lot of people to develop a lot of things, right? They have $250 billion in the bank to bring to this problem. And they're going to be able to figure out room scale. They bought a company called PrimeSense out of Israel that does 3D sensing, and they bought that two or so years ago. So we're going to see Apple be a major mover in this market. Watch them. And then there's some unknowns, Tesla. Tesla could do an AR headset. People would love to wear a Tesla headset if it did something really cool. Amazon's building one. We don't yet know what an Amazon headset would do, but we have the Amazon Echo device in our bedroom downstairs, and you talk to it. You say, Alexa, play the news, and it starts reading the news. Alexa, play the Beatles, and it starts playing the Beatles. Alexa, what's the weather today? And it tells you the weather. Alexa, can you buy some toilet paper? And it says, yeah, would you like the same Charmin 2-ply that you bought last time? Yeah, sure. On and on, right? So if you're talking to a device like that from Amazon and it works pretty well, you're going to possibly be doing the same thing on your face. Let me look at what people are asking. So I hope that answers the question, Rabia. Ahmed asks, what's the biggest move for VR in the coming 2 years, in my opinion? I think mobile VR is going to be the biggest story. And I'm visiting Huawei in China at the end of August. When the mobile players solve these 4 problems, the screen resolution, the GPU, the controllers in your hands, and the room scale, or the ability to move in 6 degrees, when they solve those 4 problems, you're going to have a magical device on your face. And and that's coming in the next 18 months, if not sooner. So that I think that's going to be the biggest move. Magic Leap and HoloLens are even bigger, but they're a little bit further out. I might have one in 2 years, but I don't think the average consumer is going to have one. It's going to be 3, 4, 5 years before the average consumer, even in San Francisco, has one. So, and 10 years before the average consumer in Africa has one, right? Hoda asks, do I see more investment in AR or VR? Let's see. Oculus got $3 billion. Magic Leap got $1.3 billion. HoloLens, how much has Microsoft invested in that? Probably $1 billion. So it's a mix right now. It's hard to say one or the other. In the startup world, VR has gotten more investment because VR is here now, or here in the next 18 months if you include the mobile stuff. AR is a little bit further, so you're seeing investments just starting in AR that'll pay fruit in 3, 4, 5 years, right? Where VR should pay fruit in 1, 2, 3 years, and so today I would say VR probably a little bit more of investment, but you're going to see a huge wave for AR when AR really starts getting close to being shipping. So hopefully that answers some of the questions. I don't know what else to say about this industry. It's a lot of fun. You should get one. You should come and check it out at GITEX. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of vendors who are going to show off different things about VR, whether it be HTC or Sony or Oculus Rift, or many of the different startups that are going to be building stuff for this. I doubt we're going to see that much consumer-focused AR this year, but there might be some in the back halls is showing around. So, what is the small size factor that VR devices can be? I should have brought my Oculus up. The problem is you need some fairly sizable screens to do this, to do this immersive kind of media. And so this year, the Oculus and the Vive are fairly large, and I don't think they're going to shrink anytime between now and next year. If you take your mobile phone and plug it into a little holder, you can get a little bit smaller, but you still have a big iPhone or an Android phone in front of you and with a screen, right? So that's the gating factor, and you need screen in front of you. There's no shortcuts on that. So I don't know how you make it much smaller. When we get into the mixed reality, Magic Leap is 2 chips and a bunch of supporting computing devices on a glass. So it gets pretty small, but it still is a pair of glasses with a package over here, and that's going to be fairly big to drive the optic system in the glasses. So we'll see. Anyways, yeah, Stuart, thanks. Thanks for joining us tonight, and hope to see you at Upload VR in San Francisco or Los Angeles soon. And I'll be around the world. I'll be at GITEX among many other conferences this year. I'm probably going to break 200,000 or 300,000 miles of travel this year, so I'm doing a lot to get around and meeting a lot of people. This is one thing that I've noticed, that the VR industry is spread across the world. There's some great companies in Seattle, a couple in Dallas, Texas, a bunch in Los Angeles, a bunch in New York, a bunch in Tel Aviv, a bunch in Beijing, a few in London, a few elsewhere in the world. So we're going to see you around the world. And Ahmed asked, why did I choose GITEX? GITEX is the biggest consumer electronics show in the Middle East. So if you want to see what's happening in the Middle East and Africa, you go to GITEX, because that's where those people are hanging out. They might come to the consumer electronics show too, but it's harder to really understand the Middle East market just by going to the consumer electronics show. You're not going to meet as many people from that region. And GITEX is an important show. It's huge. If you've ever been there, It takes, I don't know, 20 minutes just to walk from one end of the hall to the next. It's a big show. So if you want to meet people from the Middle East, you got to go to JITEX, right? Anyways, looking forward to seeing you at JITEX, and I hope that answers everybody's questions. If you have more questions, I usually hang out on Facebook, so you can join me on Facebook. And thanks for joining me tonight.